If you've wanted yet feared to do work that is weird, this is the show you just need to hear.
Hi, I'm Sam Balter, and this is, different. The sweet sounds of an old record, with all its crackling and pops. Only, this is a new record, and those pops you're hearing? Yeah, they're the sound of human ashes. That's right. Today's guest, Jason Leach, makes a living honoring the dead by pressing their ashes into new vinyl records. So, what's it like to live beyond the groove? Well, as Jason says, rest in vinyl.
Now let's listen to them speak about their jobs, which are quite unique. Weird work.
So where are you right now?
I'm in Scarborough on the northeast coast of the UK.
Oh yeah? So how's the weather there?
It's not famous for its good weather, but we get some.
Okay, so how would you describe what you do?
I press the ashes from human remains into vinyl records.
And where did you get the idea of pressing human ashes into vinyl records?
It was a sort of coming together of a number of things at the same time, one of which was sort of very late on in my life, sort of coming to terms with the fact that I will actually die one day, which seems shocking, but and it was just as shocking really to me. I was, I suppose, fortunate enough not to have experienced too many deaths around me. And I found when I started to consider, I thought it was incredible that I'd been so sheltered from it. And at the same time as I was considering this, my mother, out of the blue, got a job at a funeral director's. At that stage, I'd been making my own vinyl records for more than 15 years. That's over 20 now. And then during all of this sort of going on, I saw on the news, I believe it was Hunter S. Thompson. Someone was talking about the fact that he'd had his ashes put into fireworks, which I thought was kind of cool. And I thought, well, what do I want to do? And I just thought, well, what I certainly would like to have is a vinyl record of my great-great-grandfather, for example, telling me about himself and what he liked and perhaps the music he liked. And I just thought it would be a great way to pass something of myself on to my descendants. Possibly keep the neighbours up even when I'm gone on occasion. And probably the closest thing I'll ever get to time travel.
So I guess, what is it about audio as a way to be remembered versus, a headstone, a giant statue, something like that?
Well, I think this is something that can be done as well, of course, because it doesn't use all of them. But it is a good point, and it's something that's close to my heart, having I worked with sounds all my life. And a lot of the music I make is based on field recordings. And I've always been amazed at how powerful listening to old DAT tapes, for example, of recordings I'd done 10, 15 years ago. And just the noise in the background, you just don't notice them. You block them out normally. But when you listen back, it really transforms you back to that moment.
What kind of field recordings did you make?
Well, they'd be anything from going to printing presses to chopping at wood, starting a car. I mean, even so far as slapping an empty banana skin on my now past music partner Phil, who had a bald head, which I made fantastic hand clap out of actually, and I'd use those samples to build and make music.
Yeah, I remember this one time I saw Kronos Quartet play, and they had these field recordings of deep at an Arctic research station, and it was fucking nuts because it was chainsaws and dogs and wind in the background, and it I don't know, there's something I guess about audio that feels maybe more like it puts you in that place than just looking at a picture would be.
I think so, yeah, and I think pictures are obviously there and they're sat there and they're still, and audio is a period of time, which I think maybe has something to do with it. One of the records we did actually, early on was I worked a couple of times with an Italian artist. She was called Francesca, or is called Francesca Grilli. And one of the projects she did using the concept was she recorded a tornado, an earthquake, and a volcano, and had fantastic, very good quality recordings of these things. And she then she had found a meteorite and had that crushed, and we pressed that into the record, and then on one side had the 3 audio tracks of those sounds playing, which was quite a nice one that we did, and those field recordings were fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, volcano's got to be. I'd actually be scared shitless to record something like that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know how it was done, but they managed to record it. I don't know who was where when it was taken, but it was a good recording.
So when do ashes get added into the mix?
Well, the ashes get added in at the pressing stage. There's a fair amount of art involved in that as well, of course, because clearly when you're making a vinyl record, the environment is set so that you don't have dust and you don't have any alien matter involved. What we're doing is adding it. So it's kind of contra to what you would want to be doing. And there's obviously a fine line between putting in too much so that it can't be played or heard, or, the audio is compromised too much, or the grooves are compromised too much, but you also want enough in there so that it can be seen. Most people still like a bit of extra crackling and pops because that's the people in there, but you don't want so much so that it compromises either the audio or playability of it.
So, I guess, in let's say cups, maybe, how I don't know how many cups is a human body, and then how much of that, and then is it like 2 cups is a human body, and then like a teaspoon goes into the record?
Well, it varies. I mean, there's a number of factors involved. Obviously, things like the size of people will have a bearing on it, but also how they're cremated and in what they're cremated will have a bearing. So I don't know exactly what it takes, but there's a fair amount of ash in your average urn.
And then you're just kind of like sprinkling that ash on.
We used somewhere between a half a teaspoon and a teaspoon's worth of ash in each record.
Okay, and then the more you put in, the more pops and crackles you get, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we do the way we make them. We do everything we can to encapsulate them within the vinyl as best we can. But if you put too much in, it will have much more effect on what you're hearing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's super. Do you have any sort of ceremony associated with you putting those ashes into the vinyl?
Not as such. I mean, we do it with care and respect, and to everything, which includes primarily, of course, the person involved, but also the equipment and also the resultant record as well. So everything's done very carefully. Each record's made individually. It's not like as records are normally made, some great big production line, if you see what I mean. Each record is individual. The ash is added by hand, and each record is made individually, which is unusual.
So it's like the same basic process. But if everybody else is getting, normally when you're pressing vinyl, it's out for mass distribution, right?
Yeah.
Is it cost effective to just make one vinyl?
Well, no, it's not. It's not. I mean, obviously, if you make 100,000 records and you make one record, that one record's unit cost goes up significantly. So it's not the most cost-effective way of making vinyl, of course, but it's special. We give a price for up to 30 records. Sometimes people only want one. Sometimes they want a few more. The majority of customers want between 5 and 15, I would say, is the average.
And when people are coming to you to get ashes pressed, is it more often that it's the person who is going to die, or is it friends and family who have the ashes?
Well, when I originally came up with the concept, and I hasten to add, it was never, ever intended to be a commercial venture. It was just an idea for myself. I didn't ever expect I'd be doing it for other people. And in order to sort of explore the idea, I was having fun with it, really, because I didn't like thinking about it. So the original site was kind of jokey. It was full of puns. It was a bit dark and fun. It had the Grim Reaper, but instead of the scythe, it was a record needle. An Autophon actually was the make of the needle, but that was changed to Mortophon. And it's just got puns on it, and it's like "Live On From Beyond the Groove" and "Rest R.I.V." Rest in Vinyl. I was having fun with it while sort of working out how it might work. And it was actually that site that got picked up on pretty much straight away and went crazy. And I tried really ignoring it for a long time, despite the fact I'd put it in my will that that's what I was going to do. And it got to the point where I thought, I can't leave this. It's insisting itself of me. So I thought, right, I'll give it a go, because so many people were showing interest. And now that's what I'm doing, and I can't quite believe it.
So you were just like, when I die, I want somebody who knows how to press my ashes into vinyl.
Yeah, I knew, I've made over 50 myself of my own music over the years. So I know it. So it wasn't a problem with that, but I had to know how to make it simple for my family, close family, to be able to arrange it for me. So I had to go through the process of how would I leave it simple for them to do it. And by doing it, I basically had written an unintended business model, which seemed to strike a chord with people.
When the first people who started coming to you, did they have ashes ready?
Yeah, sorry, that's what you asked. I went off on one, but yes, basically, it was the idea was that you plan it for yourself. But what has actually happened, although we are working with a number of people who are planning them, the great thing about it being that obviously once you've established what it is you want, which I'll come to in a minute because that's not so easy, but once you actually get a pressing with a sleeve, as it will be, because we will have everything ready. But everything will be made, everything would be mastered. You'd even have a copy of the record that you're going to feature in one day, fit with the sleeve and everything done, everything ready. So the fact is it's all done. So the relatives only need to contact the place, whether it be their local pressing plant, because it could all be there, or whether it be us, however they want to do it. But the fact is the majority of the records we've made have been for people who have either knew about us before they passed away and said that's what they wanted to do, or more often than not, it's people who already had the ashes of a loved one or a family member or a friend and just said they knew they would absolutely have loved this and they didn't know what they wanted to do with the ashes, and they'd been sat there in their cupboard under the stairs and they felt bad about it, and they thought it'd be a great way for all of their friends and family to have something to remember them by.
And so, like, let's say I'm coming in and I'm like, I would love my ashes pressed into a record when I die.
Yeah.
What do we have a consultation together? Do we talk through this thing? Like, what happens next?
What I try to do is to say, look, these are all the sort of things that you can do. And the list gets longer because the majority of people we speak to come up with brilliant new ideas all the time. And then we also always try to encourage having as much spoken word on there as they can of them talking, because it's the most profound thing to have on a record with you in it, is your own voice, telling people about yourself perhaps, or what you liked, or where you liked, or the music you liked. Everyone automatically thinks about the music they'd like, and that's totally valid and is often used. But we do promote as much as possible that they include spoken word. And even when people already have the ashes and that they may not have recorded, have recordings of these people talking, they may have some home video or footage on their phone, for example, where there is speaking on there. So we remind them that they might have it, even though they don't think they do. And even voicemail, things like that, because although it's very difficult for perhaps the family early on, and they don't like to it makes them sad to hear their voices. After a while, it's the best part of the record for the family that's left and the friends, because there's something quite amazing about hearing someone's voice in a room. They're still moving the air. It still sounds like them. And it's quite a powerful thing to leave, really.
Wait, what do you mean they're still moving the air?
Well, I mean, if you've got yourself recorded on a record speaking and you're played in 300 years' time, your voice is moving the air in the room where people are listening to it. So it's quite physical in a way, because sound is air moving and vibration, and to have your voice engraved in a record, a needle bouncing around in it, and your voice coming out, and maybe your great grandchildren hearing your voice is quite powerful.
Is there any music or audio that somebody has wanted on there that you've been like, that's a terrible idea? Like if somebody was like, I just want Backstreet's Back on repeat for this entire record, would you be like, no, I'm not even doing that? Well,
no, I mean, some people sort of say, well, they think they want them just laughing on a closed loop at the end. But I mean, if that's what they want, why not?
So whatever they want, you'll throw it in. Okay.
Well, as long as it's their audio and they've acquired it by the legitimate means, they can put anything. It's up to them what they put on there.
Let's circle back and talk about death.
Okay.
So you mentioned that when you were getting into this, it was like your mother got a job at the funeral home, and you were thinking a lot about your own mortality.
Yeah.
Like, how old were you? What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, it's embarrassing, really, but I was 37 by this stage, and I hadn't really ever thought about it in any depth at all. I guess I pushed it out of my mind, and people don't tend to discuss it very much, and unless you've been unfortunate enough to experience it a lot, I think at least in the world I know, in the UK and where I grew up, and all the people I know, we're very sheltered from it all. I know that my grandparents, who lived in a little village in Switzerland, were very involved when people died in the village. Everyone knew about it. Everyone was around. You'd see the person. It was something the whole community was involved in. And now it's very much that you don't talk about it in front of children, and you block their ears, if you like, or wait till they've gone to bed. And I was amazed how little I'd thought about it. And it was kind of shocking, really, for me to realise that. And so, yeah, I mean, really, that's what it was. And I just hadn't thought about it. I hadn't written a will. I just thought that's not. Obviously, I knew it would happen to me, but I didn't think it was going to be anytime soon. It certainly wasn't something I wanted to think about. And when I did bring it up and spoke to other people about it, most people didn't want to even talk about it. Oh, that's dark. Let's not talk about that. And it's like, well, it's going to happen to all of us. Why not? Maybe it'll be good to. So I was just amazed what a closed shop it was when it's waiting for everyone.
And sorry if this is a personal question, but are you religious at all?
Not classically.
Yeah, because
that's a way of saying it. I mean, I certainly believe in something. I don't know what it is. I don't believe in any particular religion. But I can't believe that there's not some kind of reason for everything. Something started all this. Don't know what it was.
Yeah, because I don't know. Like, I'm not a particularly religious person either, but I feel like death is a big part. Like if you're Catholic, like, you are talking about death pretty regularly.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think this has changed the way you think about death?
It's given me a load more faith and respect in the human race by how amazingly I'm just so impressed and humbled by how strong and brilliant people are when they're very sad, and they're in the process of grieving. And I don't know, I think it's probably given me more optimism, actually. And I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but if you think about these things more, it actually, rather than being a depressing thing, it actually makes you think, well, hang on a minute, I've got to make the most of this, because it does happen. And it makes you start, respecting what you've got, appreciating what you've got, and making the most of what you've got a lot more.
Yeah, and Yeah, no, that's a very, very beautiful sentiment like associated with it. Are there any records or vinyls that stick out in your mind as like particularly beautiful ones you've pressed?
My favourite one is one with Pure Speaking on it, and it was an old chap who had his mother's ashes for some time, maybe 15 years or so, and he brilliantly recorded her before she became very unwell. I think mini discs had just come out, so that sort of tells you when it was, and he spent a few hours speaking to her and asking her about when he was young, when she was young, about his father, about his different relatives, just basically the family history. And he got hours of this. It was fantastic material. And I sat with him and we edited it down into 2 sides of vinyl record. And for me, that was the best one because it's such a brilliant family record. You know, it's the perfect thing for him to leave for his daughters and beyond. And it, for me, was the essence of what this all is.
How many minutes do you have on a record available?
It really depends what you're putting on there. It does if you're putting heavy beat music, for example, you're going to be able to fit less on than if it's just speaking. So, for example, if you go for a 12-inch vinyl, if you want a loud club record, you don't want to be putting any more than 12 minutes maximum on one side. But you'll know, classic albums, for example, might be more like 20, 25 minutes. And if you're just having somebody speaking, you could probably get up to 30 minutes on a side. I would say generally for an Vinyly record, you're looking at between 15 and 25 minutes probably, depending on what you're putting on there or per side.
No, that's really interesting. I actually had no idea that how loud it was and what it sounds like actually determines how much space you have available.
Yeah, it does. It makes a difference to the size of the grooves and therefore how tight you can have the grooves, etc. So it all has a bearing.
And I mean, I think about cremation in general. Like in my mind, the cremation is like you're standing by the beach or a cliff or you're in the woods and you throw the ashes up into the air and they all disappear. And the ceremony seems to sort of be, to me, about like letting go.
Yeah.
Does it kind of contradict, I guess, in some ways, why you would be cremated in the whole ceremony of letting go by embedding it into an album?
Possibly. It could definitely be seen that way. I mean, the thing is, a lot of the people that we've done this for have actually done that. They've scattered ashes, but they've also made some records as well. It's not an either or. But yes, your point is totally valid. And I guess if people see it that way, then it wouldn't be for them.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. If you don't want your ashes remembered or put into things, just throw them off the cliff with everybody else.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, what at this moment would you have on your vinyl?
Yeah, well, it's probably the hardest thing to do is to decide what you would want to have on there. And mine is it's an ongoing process, like living itself, and it will be what it is when the time comes, and it will be too late to change it by then. But it will certainly have a bit of my music on it. It will definitely have some of me speaking on it. That changes regularly. It would have some of my daughter's voice on there as well. I would have recordings of places that I like. Sometimes where there's places that I like and enjoy being, I'll record them with my microphone, and I'd try to capture what I feel is that place. So it would be a mixture of all the things that you could put on there, which I'd like to, best sum me up at that time. And as you can imagine, that changes regularly. And there'll be a bit of artistic control, license, as it were, given to my next of kin as well, because my other problem is I've got far too much I think it will be like a box set, a 10 times box set at the moment. So,
so yours is going to be like five records with like different plans. Yeah. But is it weird? Like, you know, let's say you're at, I don't know, like your daughter's piano recital or something. Is it weird? Is there a part where you're like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Such an amazing moment. I should record this in case I die. Like,
yeah, well, you always miss those. You know, if you've got the mic on, it never happens. And if you're thinking I should be recording it, you're probably missing the moment. And so I try not to do that, because then I'm spoiling the now. But I've got a lot of those by mistake, which I didn't realise, which is great. You know, and I listen out for these moments. Just the considering what I'll put on my record has made me enjoy myself more, if you see what I mean. Having that in my mind, that I'd like to make sure I do get moments that are special, has made me look out for them more and realise how many there are.
No, that's beautiful. I just want to say, like, thank you so much for doing this interview. I'm feeling a lot happier than I thought I was going to be at the end of this interview. Like I thought, I thought I was going to come out of this like feeling depressed and that my life was a waste. But no, I feel like really good. I think everything you talked about it making you more optimistic about the world itself is, I don't know. I think that's a really beautiful sentiment.
Okay.
Ha! Look, it's me again. You thought it was over. I'll give you one guess what I'm about to ask. Oh yeah, it's to subscribe to this podcast. If you do, I'll love you forever. Unless your name's Ira Glass. Okay, thanks.